Looks nice and
Oh,
green where you are.
I all of my dad's plants.
Oh, it's lovely.
We have a lot of veggies, like we don't even have to like go and buy, any vegetables. I feel like in the summer we have like squash, eggplant. I don't know if I could show it to you. We have like eggplant.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's a meaningful eggplant.
We have bell peppers, sweet peppers, tomatoes, all of that.
Amazing.
Came across Little Bridge and I saw like how it's very relevant right now with remote learning, happening because of COVID. Tell us a little bit about, this platform.
Yeah, so Little Bridge was founded with the mission of connecting the world's children and empowering them with the key skills, qualities, and attributes that they need to be successful in the 21st century. It was the product was invented and kind of brought to life by two of my co-founders who are both ex-teachers and have published dozens of children's books. And the idea was to bring an immersive community to life online where children anywhere in the world could connect and build friendships with other kids like themselves in different parts of the world, and then together learn a very, very important skill, English and communication. And as you pointed out, COVID has been a very interesting time for the world of education, and we've definitely seen a deeper interest in the product during this time as parents are sort of taking education into their own hands.
How do you think this educational technology is impacting children nowadays?
Education technology as a kind of a broad category, I think
Yeah.
is making education much more accessible. So children who wouldn't previously, I mean, in the example of Little Bridge, wouldn't previously have been able to get access to an effective, comprehensive learning solution are now able to because they can access it online. I think education technology has made learning much more personalized. So children are getting the sort of rewards that they need to encourage them to continue, and they're getting the content that is appropriate for their level of learning. Obviously, that also impacts the pace of learning. So children are able to learn much more independently without feeling rushed like they would in a typical learning environment, or feeling, the opposite effect, which is, if they need to slow down and take a bit more time on something. So it's across the board. I think it's improving efficacy, it's improving accessibility, and it's just making education much more, it's democratizing education. It's making it much more equal, which is long overdue.
How do these children, online build friendships like from different parts of the world? I've seen other kids, like they have a difficult time interacting with, their teachers or their classmates through just a camera and, in the laptop. How does Little Bridge play a role in that?
So I think the best way to describe this is to just give you a really quick overview of the product. So when a child joins Little Bridge, the first thing that they do is they create their avatar and they customize their page. So that's sort of their piece of real estate. That's their little person in Little Bridge, which is this virtual place. Then the second piece is, and it's my kind of favorite feature of the product, it's the globe. So every child can look onto the globe and see which children have been active in other countries all around the world. And then they can click on each of those different users because they're placed on this globe feature. And they can add them as friends and begin conversations with them. And so sometimes the conversations are very basic because they're just starting to learn the English language, and English is the only way that they can communicate with one another. Or we also see them using emojis. We do have some emojis in there that they can use to start. And then the whole idea is that as they learn more English, the conversation actually evolves and the friendship develops further. And we definitely see that and have evidence of that happening in the platform. So, you'll be able to tell if like a child who's just covered how to describe the sports they like, because they'll be on the platform just blowing everybody's inboxes up saying, I like basketball, I like basketball, I like that. They've just learned how to say that. And then there's also a recommendation feature within the platform where we recommend children to become friends with other kids who have similar interests. Obviously, they can choose whether or not they decide to add that friend or start a conversation, but we do also recommend children to each other for friendships.
Or any advice for people who have an idea and they don't know how to, execute their idea, starting a business, a startup, or whatever the idea is? Like, how do you because I feel like not a lot of people speak about this, like finding investors, how do you persuade investors, things like that. Then I guess from your experience, you can speak a little bit about that.
Yes, sure. So I think there's a few things. Like the first thing is, if you have a great idea, I always recommend research, testing, and starting to think about whether or not the idea is supported by any sort of demand or any sort of data that shows that the idea needs to happen, right? So and again, like this is kind of the boring part of it. The idea part is like is intuitive, it's creative, and I definitely like recognize that in some of the projects I've been involved with. And then on the other side of that is there demand for it? Is there something that is impact driven or commercial about it where it needs to exist? So that's sort of the first stage for me when I think about anything and starting anything. It's sort of the idea, idea usually means product, right? Or idea could be a solution to a particular problem, but it's taking that, fleshing it out, talking to people about it who are either in the space or have some expertise around it, and just desk-based research. You can find a lot of information on Google, people looking for different solutions, existing products that might solve that problem and maybe aren't doing so effectively. And so that's kind of the first step, is that sort of exploration. I'd say that the next stage of that is testing and seeing if there's really market demand for that product, or if it's more charitable idea, if there are people who can be effectively served by that solution. I think if your idea has legs and it's solving a meaningful problem and you've done some testing and you can survey people, you can create an MVP if it's not technical. You can probably do that quite cheaply. If it is technical, you can probably still do it quite cheaply, but it's testing the idea in the barest bone way possible and seeing if there is some interest. And the thing with raising investment is if you've got a great product that's solving a real problem, or if you've got a really great project that's solving a real need for people, you shouldn't have to be too persuasive, right? Like raising investment is not necessarily it's not just about being an effective storyteller. Like if you have a great product and people need it and there is economics that make sense behind that product, then it's not difficult to raise capital. Now, if you're, kind of not sure about the product or not sure about where you're going to take it, then obviously people need to believe in you as a person and believe that if they're going to entrust you with capital, that you're going to be a good guardian of that capital and you're going to use it effectively. And so it sort of depends on what category you fall in. And if you're a first-time founder, then I think you probably need to demonstrate a little bit more progress. If you are an experienced entrepreneur and you've had a few exits and maybe you want to, you're interested in starting something new to solve a particular problem, and people know that you're a good steward of their money, then they will invest in you. So it really sort of depends on the background and the profile of the entrepreneur and sort of what the product is and whether there is evidence of demand, both in the market and also kind of primary evidence, which is like, I built this MVP, I built a landing page and 5,000 people signed up, and I have a wait list of people who have given me their credit card details who are going to pay for this.
I saw on your Instagram, you're also the founder of Next Gen London. It's a charity, UNICEF Next Gen London, and it's a charity organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I set that up a few years ago. And the mission of that organization was to allow young professionals, creatives, entrepreneurs to create different projects to raise funds and advocate for UNICEF, as well as to do pro bono projects that were actually focused on specific programs. So we basically would launch different sort of like concepts, whether it's cookbook or a supper club or film screenings, or we would partner with different kind of businesses who wanted to make a donation to UNICEF. We basically were a bridge for young professionals, which by our definition are people in their 20s and 30s. So kind of like under 40s, let's say, who wanted to have a creative and effective way to support UNICEF's work, but weren't necessarily interested in being in charity full time. And at that time, it seemed that, especially in London, I think there was more models like this in the US, and there was actually Next Gen in New York. But in the UK especially, there was nothing that was allowing young people to give back unless they were doing so in and sort of like by running a marathon or selling baked goods at the office or things like this. And so we wanted to come up with a way to incubate really high potential ideas and then scale the ideas that work. So that's sort of where that came from. So we, film screenings and cookbooks and poetry books and all kinds of projects have come out of it, and all kinds of really amazing creative leaders, entrepreneurs have come forward to organize things, and it's been a really fun way to sort of bridge the community's professional skills with what UNICEF is looking for in order to raise funding, and it's been fun.
So you told me about how you became a yoga instructor. Tell me about the, just the whole process of like, why did you want to become a yoga instructor?
Yeah, I've been practicing for, like almost 15 years now. And for me personally, it's like on my mat that I feel the most grounded and the most connected with myself. It's where things become very clear. And I think it's just like, it's the part of my life that has just kind of been applied everywhere. So whether it's philanthropic work on my personal life or Little Bridge, it's what kind of keeps me grounded. And I wanted to deepen my knowledge of that so that I could help other people. And like, I had a friend who was like suffering with sciatica, and I showed her a couple of things, and she's like, I feel better. What was that posture that you taught me? Because I've trained with this like yoga master who's been practicing for over 50 years. He's like in his 70s and trained with Iyengar and like all the OG, I shouldn't use that maybe, but all the original yoga masters that brought yoga to the West. And so I've learned like a very much more anatomical practice. And I think that it kind of goes to, your being invincible theme, but I think a lot of that strength and courage comes from within, and meditation and yoga for me have been an access point for that. And so it's just something that I wanted to have more mastery over, and I thought training with one of the best teachers was a great way to do that. And who knows where that will take me, but it's definitely something I plan to incorporate into my life and into the different aspects of my work over time.
I tried one time hot yoga or twice, and it was definitely an experience. I don't know if you've ever tried hot yoga.
I have. There's so many different types of yoga. Yeah, I think hot yoga has a particular benefit. I think. I mean, it's obviously like you sweat and you get all the toxins out. And
like you're releasing toxins. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good workout, especially depending on the type you do. But the yoga that I've most focused on is the yoga of aligning your spine. And allowing the energy to move more freely through your spine. And that's kind of the type of yoga. It's called Pralaya yoga. It's a type of yoga that I learned from Robert Bustani, my teacher. But yeah, there's 1,000,001 types of yoga. And I kind of like the more fundamental. I like Ashtanga, I like Pralaya. And then there's obviously so many different types and forms of yoga that have sort of come out of the original forms of it. But Kundalini yoga, that's an amazing and beautiful practice as well. So kind of depends what you need. Different yogas for different times of life. I think being invincible is really about knowing yourself, being confident in yourself, and being able to kind of recover and jump back up onto the horse quickly. It's about how quickly you get back up. So and it's a process. I think when we go through life, we obviously all experience things not happening as we expected them to, or something that we really want not happening. You get to a point where you know what your value is as a business, as a product, as a person, and you can just quickly bounce back from that because you've learned to develop that inner confidence and that kind of grounded self-worth, if you will. And I think that's what being invincible is about. It's not necessarily about, not being affected, but it's about learning how to strengthen and not be as affected. And when you are affected, just kind of coming back to yourself and coming back to your happy place quickly.
Yeah, and it's always easier said than done, right?
Yeah. Yes, sure. And that's where all the yoga and meditation and all those tools become very, very useful as you learn to navigate your thoughts and grow as a person.
All right. Thank you so much, Layla, for joining us today. It was really nice having you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And good luck with everything. And I hope that the community finds it valuable to listen to our conversation.